Across the Margin. Across the Margin podcast.
Well, your coach should have ran with some better ringers. The mob went from a handful of heavy hitters to randoms and second stringers. Your camp has how many members? There's plenty in the crowd. They want to be the yard bullies, so they'll put anybody down. While the Doc Mob president pretends that you're friends, but he ain't present at your battle, no one ever attends. Little homie representing only benefits them. With your rep, I'd be resenting where those benefits end. You playing the wrong game, that relationship's all strained. Mook and Rex got along, famous before fame. Did numbers before the dot, they making some large gains. Added money after the dot, so they paying them small change. They purchase you for cheap. Ain't no earnings you could keep. Just deserve what you deserve. Don't be concerned with what they eat. That's the sermon that they preach. They was certain you was meek, because the serpent only preys on a person who is weak. Like your tattoo artist when he's working on your piece. Made you take it on the chin, then turn the other cheek. You observe without a peek, had a word without a tweet. Under Doc Mob's wing, use a bird without a beak. Pussy has a putty tat, despite where he put his tat. We gotta suffer this sucker's trash, why I ought to whoop his ass. And make it hard for this cartoon artist to save face. Having some real heart is the part that you can't fake. You a guppy in a tank with a shark and I taste bait. You let Arsenal claim grape and y'all aren't from the same state. Let alone your neighborhood or your street. Day, the tookie that's weak. I could walk in the shoes of the Brooklyn elite, but there's a difference between Bigfoot and defeat. All that I need's a rhyme book and a beat, and I'm cooking with heat. I'll butcher this beef, dog, this cat food, type of pussy I eat. On the reel, you fishing and catch a hook in your cheek. I'm the medicine man when you look to get late. An NY in front of Quill will put him to sleep.
How do you follow that? Well, here it goes. Welcome to Across the Margin, the podcast, where we take you beyond the margin, behind the scenes, and deeper into the story. I have with me today, as always, my co-host Chris Thompson. How you feeling, Chris?
Not bad, Mike. Really excited to be here today.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm pumped. So what you just heard there, as an introduction to this podcast, was the lyrical stylings of Aaron Solomon, better known in the hip-hop and battle rap community as Iron Solomon. For those not in the know, Iron Solomon is a wordsmith. He's one of the sharpest and most clever writers and lyricists in the history of battle rap. It is not going too far to call Iron a legend in his own time. He is a craftsman who builds with words, and his impact is such that he has helped transition the sport and art of battle rap to where it is today. We are absolutely honored to speak with him today.
That's right, Mike. And as you know, we like to say over here at Across the Margin that there are stories to be found everywhere. It's an idea that we like to promote and celebrate with all the writers and wordsmiths who contribute to the magazine. But it's also a fact that there are numerous ways to tell stories out there, not just through the written word. From slam poets to songwriters and novelists to stand-up comedians, the ways to convey stories are numerous. And that's what we are featuring here today on our latest podcast. Everyone's got a story to tell, but they also have their own unique ways in which they choose to tell them. So we're going to be talking with Iron Solomon, an artist and rapper who is not only a storyteller, but who uses a unique brand of art to convey his stories, and that's the art of battle rap.
For many, this is going to act as an introduction to the underground phenomenon that is battle rap. And because Chris and I are still learning the ins and outs, we too are looking forward to gain some perspective into the techniques, format, and eccentric figures that make battle rap so intriguing. But while not diehards, we have been enamored with the craft for some time, and we have done our research enough to go inside baseball, so to speak, to discuss some of Iron Solomon's most impactful moments. Battles that not only define him and his decade-plus career, but battle rap as it is today. Across the Margin is a home for writers and wordsmiths. And today, we have for you one of the best. So, Chris, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Where's Iron?
Iron has invited us to his home. So
awesome.
Let's pack up here and head over.
Let's do it, man. I'm psyched. Let's go.
Let's go. But thank you, man. We're
for sure.
thrilled to be here, especially thanks for having us to your house.
Yeah, definitely.
This
appreciate
this
that.
is wild. So
Definitely. Soon to be ex-house.
Ex-house, I know. So everyone, can I call you Iron? Can I call you like?
Yeah, whatever you
Hey,
want.
it's Aaron.
Solomon. Yeah, Aaron. So Aaron is my first name and Solomon is my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's your last name?
Merkin.
Okay. You were known as AM Boogie.
Yeah.
Or what,
Unfortunately.
yeah. So you're like, that's not gonna work, or
So that came about like. I used to write graffiti and
Yeah.
my initials are AM and so
Yeah.
it's like the least creative tag, but I used to write it AYEM. So there's like some creativity. Yeah, like spelled out phonetically. And then I went to the end of the week open mic and which is a group that I'm now affiliated with, and
that's still going.
yeah, so
it's
that's the
still-
longest
it's long,
running
yeah.
weekly open mic in New York.
Okay, where's it held right now?
They actually just moved. They were at the Pyramid, which is where we met.
Oh, cool.
But now I'm not sure. They just moved, and like in the midst of us moving, I'm not sure where they've landed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went to open mic, and I was just like, AM, like this. It's not enough. It's like just two letters, and I was like, in the moment, was like AM Boogie, like fuck it, It was like some, I was always into. I was probably wearing like a brass name belt. You know what I mean? Like I was always into like nostalgia, and there was an element of the like boogie down production that but now very quickly it became, I was like, I've made a huge mistake.
It's not as powerful.
Yeah.
Like that.
And like even though AM was part of my name, and I had so many other names that are all like equally terrible, it was always weird for me to have a name that was like just totally made up, you know. So after that, I was like, should I just be Aaron Solomon? And then I was actually hanging out with my boy Andrew Figment, and we were talking about it and super high, and this girl that we were with that I only met her that one time was like. I was like, should it be Aaron Solomon or blah, blah, blah? And she was like, I like Iron or Iron or something. And I was like, shut up. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know you. Yeah. And then like a month or two later, I was like, okay, that actually kind of works because it's so similar to my name. Mm-hmm. And I felt like Aaron and Solomon are two really powerful names, like the Aaron being Moses' brother. Mm-hmm. I'm not religious, but I'm into the like narratives, you know, and the symbolism of Aaron being Moses' brother who spoke to the people because Moses had a lisp. So he was like the conduit for a message and able to deliver a message that didn't necessarily come from him, but he was the one who was able to communicate it to the people. And then Solomon being a king who was known for being like of the people and wise and just. And then that my grandfather's name was Solomon. So I was like,
wow, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. So it was like, why am I running away? Why am I like making shit up to be somebody else? Of course, you want like a superhero name in hip hop, or even not in hip hop. People change their names, but so I felt like I wanted, like, why am I running away from these names that have so much significance and represent not just like something I want to be as a person, but that ability to communicate a message is like who I want to be as a rapper. That it's not always about my story that I'm telling, but a story that I'm telling. And so let me just use my own name. But then the Iron and Aaron are like so similar. It was a little bit of superhero involved, but it was still me.
Also bigger than you.
Exactly.
At the same time.
Exactly.
I mean, the Iron brings with it a lot of like visual, like power to it too. It's like it's unbreakable. It's strong. So it sort of like can be like.
It's better than AM Boogie.
It's better than AM Boogie.
Yeah, and that exactly that feeling of Iron and Iron Mike Tyson and like just you want to dress for the job that you want.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very meta. Very meta. You know.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you know about Across the Margin, but you know, we kind of consider ourselves a home for a lot of poets, a lot of writers, a lot of people who try and create different stuff. So talking to a lyricist and a musician and performer like you is kind of like right in our wheelhouse. So
awesome,
another reason why we're pumped to be here. But I think a lot of our listeners don't know a lot about battle rap, might not know, you know, the ins and outs, and there's no way we can cover that all, like all
Sure,
the leagues.
right.
I mean, it's once
complex.
You start peeling that onion, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like, it's,
more so than ever.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
you gotta, you know, these kids are in it, die hard. I mean,
Yeah,
it's nerdy, it's
totally.
fun, it's fantastic.
It's like wrestling, or it's like any like cult subgenre
Absolutely.
thing where there's like, it's even like the Yankee. You know, I have friends that are into baseball as much for the story of the clubhouse and the history and the narrative.
Like the
you know,
statistics, and
Right,
like that. And
exactly.
It's the same thing. You could talk
Yeah.
about a match in 07, a match
Totally,
in 11,
yeah.
and like that's the
yeah,
fun of it.
and
too.
like it even down to the like. Well, a home run wasn't as long back then, you know what I mean? Like, so the cultural element of, well, this guy was undefeated here, and
Yeah.
but you know the way they were rhyming back then was different, and you know the sports supplements, you know, there's definitely so much parallel there of
Yeah.
the like the context over time and the evolution of the storylines and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's another
And
pod-
you
this-
got the-
next podcast.
Next
have that.
podcast, we'll do the whole breakdown
Yeah.
of it, and it just
We'll have people listen to it on 1.5 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were talking earlier how you can listen to a podcast fast to like knock them out, but yeah, I mean it just and like it's like an art form and a sport. I mean, and then if you watch these matches, it's like boxing with the rounds, but like it's boxing with words. I mean, how do you not get behind that? It's
Yeah.
fucking- it's amazing.
I think that's what we're drawn to, you know?
Yeah.
Like the word titles,
the
yeah.
witty
Yeah.
lyricism and like just the cleverness. But I think by talking to you a little bit and getting to know you a little more, we'll be able to learn a little bit more about battle rap too. So we can
Sure.
kind of do both. But let's start from the bottom. Like, where are you from?
I'm from New York, from the Upper West Side,
Yeah.
93rd Street and West End Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, I definitely am like a Upper West Side kid. Grew up doing the, you know, stuff that people were doing, hanging out, skating, listening to hip hop, playing guitar, smoking weed, you know, drinking 40s and wearing North Face jackets. And then also, you know, in New York, it's not like, at least in Manhattan, in my upbringing, we weren't super localized. You know, like there are definitely pockets of New York where you grow up and go to the same high school as the people in your neighborhood and all that. But I went to schools around the city, so I had experiences in other boroughs and friends from all over.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a
Right.
pretty and New York in the '80s was also very. New York is always a patchwork, but it was, you know, crack epidemic, crime. The neighborhoods were way more integrated, and and even though the Upper West Side, you know, where we lived, we definitely were middle class, upper middle class, in a really nice building, but it was a fringe neighborhood when we moved in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a doorman in the building, but there's our crack deals going on up the block. You know, so it was a very interesting time to grow up in New York, and probably not so dissimilar from a lot of parts of Brooklyn now, where it's like you have just these different kind of cultural paths that are intersecting.
That are merging together.
Yeah.
So I mean, coming into hip hop was very natural from where you lived, and
Yeah, and my dad, as we were talking about, my dad is a musician, and my mom's a musician too.
they're both musicians in what way?
Yeah, so my mom is a singer. She sings. Can sing like opera and
No way.
like jazz, and
That's amazing.
And she plays the flute. She hasn't played the flute in probably decades, but she was a flautist.
Nice.
And
I love that word.
she actually was in the music business though. Like her career was in the music business. And then
Perform opera.
she sings now in like, you know, the synagogue choir,
Yeah.
and she sings in church choirs too. She
Well,
like
that shows the passion. If you're still
yeah,
going, you're just doing
yeah,
it for you.
totally,
Like, you love
totally, yeah. Like, you know, she didn't make a career out of performing, but is definitely a trained and skilled
Yeah.
musician, and that whole side of, like, her siblings are in music as well, 2 of them, and the whole family is very musical. And then my dad is a composer, arranger, like piano player at his core, but definite multi-instrumentalist. And
Was that his career as well? Is that like,
so his career, his probably like the most what was most characteristic of his career was being an arranger composer. So he started off, you know, in bands on acid and cocaine and mushrooms and stuff like that.
You've
and
had
then,
that conversation with your father?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He has war stories.
Can I talk to him on this podcast?
Sure, yeah, he would be thrilled to.
Right.
He was in a band called Pearls Before Swine. That's not like a widely renowned band, but has like vinyl out and like all that stuff. And then he was working on like. I think his big break came when we were living on like 94. We were living around the corner. We moved on up around the corner, but we originally were on 94th between West End and Riverside, which was a block that was like 90% halfway houses, you know? So it was like, I think the story goes that they went to see the apartment like during the day in like the fall or in the like, you know, winter or spring. And then when they moved in, the first summer night, it was like dope heads like up and down the block. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, yeah, you know, the moral is like visit a neighborhood at 10 p.m. On a Sunday. Yeah, in a summer, if you really want to know.
What's happening.
And so that's where we lived when I was first born, and I think he was like playing piano in the house, and one of the neighbors came knocking, and he felt like it was going to be a like shut the fuck up and stop playing piano. And the guy was like, "You're awesome."
What is this?
Like I'm working on this off Broadway. I forget if it was.
Oh man.
I forget if it. I don't want to fuck the story up, but it was either it was an opportunity that then led to Little Shop of Horrors, or it was the earliest iteration of Little Shop of Horrors when it was off Broadway.
Yeah.
And so he was the arranger on Little Shop of Horrors off when it was like nothing, and then continued with it when it was on Broadway, and then in the movie
the film. Yeah.
So he's arranged the music orchestrated and arranged the music for Little Shop of Horrors. It was like the first like big break, and we actually moved to London for a year because so all the outdoor scenes in the movie, if you're familiar with the movie, are in an indoor set. Mm-hmm. So it was like the biggest soundstage in the world at the time, and maybe still.
All the cityscapes were.
Like when they're like
Wow.
walking down the block and like Mr. Mushnick's like flower shop, like all that's indoors. Yeah, so it was like the biggest soundstage at the time was in London, so they filmed in London, and I was like, we lived there for a year. I was like 3.5 to 4.5, and my brother was born there, or like 3 to 4. Yeah, my brother was born there, so he can't be president, which is
He's an English citizen.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then, so you obviously have music kind of flowing through your blood, but what kind of steered you towards hip hop? I mean,
It's a different direction than
rapping,
flautist or arranger, you know?
Yeah. So my dad being the like, you know, when you're in that realm of like movie, and eventually you got into children's music, but when you're in that realm, you know, we were talking about Little Mermaid because he worked on Little Mermaid too. But so, you know, like you said, Under the Sea is like
part involved with Under the Sea. That needs we need to mention that.
So like Under the Sea is Caribbean, right? And there's like it's like an authentic. I mean, you know, it's not authentic where it's like this. Oh, put Under the Sea up with like you know, No Woman No Cry.
It's steel drummy.
Yeah. But there are like elements of it that are like.
I would have thought that'd be the same sentence.
Like there are elements of it that are true to that genre. So he was always, I think, personally interested in all forms of music, and then that helped shape his professional career. And then professionally, it was important for him to be, you know, up to date. So the first hip hop that I was actually like heavily exposed to was NWA, straight out of Compton, that he bought and like played in the like rental car on a family trip. You know,
Wow.
Yeah, and I still have like all of the hip hop cassette tapes and like CDs that he bought over the. I have
awesome.
NWA, straight out of Compton cassette tape from the family car, and like the
we were listening to like Air Supply and stuff.
I think the first tape my dad bought me was Milli Vanilli, I think. I mean, like from Sears or something.
Yeah, so like, but then at the same time, the first tapes that I asked my parents to buy were Pearl Jam 10 and Digital Underground Sons of the P. Right?
Yep.
And I think at least one of them was a bootleg that we bought on like 120. So they're bootleg tapes back in the day in New York, where that was like a cassette tape that had like, you know,
from
shitty printing.
Sometimes.
I don't know where they were from, but it was like
Right.
shitty print. Like it looked like the regular professional cassette,
Kinda
but
like
like
they do
super
the DVDs
shitty
now,
and
where, like, they're
exactly,
like, yeah.
exactly where it's like blurred or pixelated,
Yeah.
and then like a Xerox copy cover, you know. And so I have some of those bootleg tapes too. So I think the thing for me, I think it's twofold. The thing that drew me. Probably it's super complex why I was drawn to hip hop,
Yeah.
but like I think that element of it of like I'm into Pearl Jam and I'm into Jimi Hendrix and I'm into Marvin Gaye and I'm into NWA, and I feel like hip hop is the quintessential postmodern collage music where it was like, you know, technology is shaping it, but everything is up. There's no cultural reference that's off limits.
Right.
Like
Yeah. It samples everything.
everything and puts it together.
I was
Exactly.
listening
It's a
to
good
your
point,
mixtape,
yeah.
which we'll get into. A lot of rock.
Yeah.
Like it starts
The
out with
Killer.
Killer.
Yeah, that one's a
Starts
heavy
out with
rock,
The American
yeah.
Psycho with the Black Sabbath.
Right,
That gets
yeah.
me like, I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
let's go.
Dope.
But it's got all those influences.
Yeah.
So you're feeling all of this, and
Yeah, and like I think that was the thing to me is that like whatever I was drawn to in those different genres, like, you know, I feel like I had sensibilities in each genre that were like, okay, you know, I like this Pantera song that has the most kind of soulful hip hop beat to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I like this Jimi Hendrix song that like just feels the hardest where you would have the same like head nod as if it was rap. And then I was playing guitar originally, you know, like as a white kid from the Upper West Side, I think I envisioned the paradigm that was most accessible for me to, I mean, obviously I was going to be a rock star. That was obvious to me.
No question
right
at all,
away.
yeah.
It was like, well, you know,
come on, the parents.
the
musicians, I got a
cover of
guitar.
Rolling Stone is inevitable.
Yeah.
So I think the paradigm that was most available to me was rocks, you know, white kid playing guitar, boom, done, you know?
Yeah.
So I was doing that, but at the same time was also writing raps, like, you know, 9-10 years old, taking guitar lessons and writing, you know, super corny 9-year-old white kid raps. And I think that my dad always tells this story of me trying to quit guitar because and he was like, why do you want to quit? And I was like, well, and I'm not as good as Slash, so like, what's the point, you know?
I can't be Slash.
Yeah, if I'm not as
Fuck
good
am
as
I doing
Slash,
here?
and he was like, you have to. Slash was not as good as Slash at one point, and so he convinced me to stay. But I think I was always, you know, I think when things come naturally to you, it's a gift and a curse. You know, it's like you have a lot of natural talent is great, but it robs you of the experience and understanding of how to work hard to achieve something. And I think I had a lot of natural talent in a lot of different areas as a kid, and I was so used to not working hard to achieve like to be like above average, notable, like, oh shit, he's good at math and he didn't study, or he's good at guitar and he's not working that hard, but he's like showing off and it's, you know, the girls are like blushing, you know? And so I think that made me like, I think hip hop in a lot of ways, even though it's like there is like such a deep study and technical thing that goes into it, there also is a bit of it's just an easier entry point, you know, like to really be a world-class guitar player, like you do have to really study for years, you know, and like to be a world-class rapper, I'm not at all downplaying what it takes to become that, you know, like obviously like Jay-Z, Slash, like they are certainly in the same category and are equally rare. But I think Jay-Z's, the entry point into hip hop has fewer like technical study requirements,
just down to the point
you know,
where you can just use your voice
exactly,
instead of not even needing the guitar. And that's
exactly
the bottom ground of it.
Yeah. So I think that entry point of like, oh, I don't have to study and memorize. Like I can literally just listen to this music and experience life and write rhymes, and that's how I'll do this instead of having to like memorize scales and like learn
more
theory.
natural, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Funner.
It's
You don't have
funner.
to go to
Yeah,
class.
exactly.
The teacher
Yeah.
putting it
Yeah.
down your neck.
And then I think, you know, just the it's cool. Hip hop is fucking cool. Like, and like that attitude and that swagger in the 90s, you know, just growing up, that was the coolest shit. It was intoxicating, you know? And then I think also just being like, you know, my house was very loving and supportive, but there was also a lot of dysfunction and fighting and like and anger too. And I think that one of the things that especially draws like, you know, privileged white kids like myself to hip hop is that angst. And like I think a lot of times there's very valid and justifiable frustration and anger and a feeling of powerlessness and injustice that doesn't have a narrative that validates it. And I think those same feelings are present in hip hop and are really validated. The narrative is very validating, where it's like, marginalized ethnic groups, marginalized economic groups, violence, like destruction in these communities. And so it's like, you are entitled to feel this way. And I think everybody's entitled to feel frustration and anger, and the narrative, like, I think partly because American culture doesn't like to look at itself and identify the dysfunction, that like white frustration, and also because money and economics tend to like be highlighted as like the answer to everything. Right. That frustration that exists in that kind of like upper middle class white community doesn't get validated because we'd rather pretend it's not valid. Yeah. Like, it's like sort of a softer, like pussier frustration, but it's also like, my household was fucked up. Sure. And like, it was definitely fucked up, and there's definitely real anger and frustration, and the world is definitely fucked up, and like teachers can be fucked up, and the cops, like the government is fucked up, and like even though you may not walk out of your door and experience the same thing that like a poor black kid in the projects experiences, I think there still is a feeling of like
your pain is relative. Your pain is still real, no matter what you're going.
Doesn't mean you didn't experience it.
Yeah,
totally. So I think all that just was like, oh, this is it. This is it for me. Yeah. Like this
makes sense.
It.
Yeah,
and you were good at it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Your boys were like, you can ride
exactly,
it,
exactly. The girls were still blushing. So.
That's just what it's all about, of course. Am I right that one of your biggest breaks when you started like getting into it was Immortal Technique? At the end of the week.
Which my dad was there for.
That's what I mean.
No way.
Like 18, 19.
Yeah. So your dad's bringing you to the.
I just invited them. Because I think my mom was there, my little brother was there.
Big moment for you.
Yeah, it was like I think, my parents. That was one way in which they were super supportive, is they were like, whatever makes you happy, you should do. And like, we're there for you.
We don't all get that.
Yeah, totally. And that was like one of the amazing things about our household.
My mom would be like, "You're going where?" Like, what?
Wait, it's dangerous down there.
So
that was at the end of the week.
So that was the end of the week, and it was an event that they do called the MC Challenge, which is not a battle at all.
Yeah, it's ciphers and like
it's like
freestyles.
Exactly.
It's a contest.
Yeah, different categories, and you get each round is a different like hoop that you have to jump through,
but is it 1-on-1 like you were going?
No, it's like 5-6 people, and everybody gets points in each round, and in the end they say, here's who's first, second, and third.
There's some very well-known judges that a lot of those. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like their roster of who's been in the challenge, and then who's judged is always like, and who's performed at the venue is like a who's who. I mean, it's like, and Immortal Technique was like the guy at that point. Yeah, he was. That's when he was like on the tear and had won all Rocksteady battles and all these battles, and was just the favorited to win. And the judges that night gave it to me first and him second.
But then the crowd, like, he got fired. He got angry.
He was pissed. And like
there's video of it. I'll share a link to it because it's a must see. It's really
So they end of the week is like not anti-battle necessarily, but alternative to battle, where it's like let's have a competition structure that can show that your well-rounded abilities as an MC. That's not necessarily just like attacking each other.
One of the judges of the MC was announcing it. Didn't even want to do the battle.
No, Big Zoo. He's like, we don't do this shit.
This is corny.
That has never happened.
Yeah.
Like, that moment is a crazy moment because, like, only because the energy in the building was, like, so heavy in that direction did they do that. But, like, they would never again with that. Yeah. Like, that's totally the antithesis of what that event is about. So it was, like, this weird alignment of the stars. And I also was like, I'm dead. Like, I was like,
were you nervous?
Oh, my God. I was like, I was so happy that I won. And I wasn't even thinking about it. Like, I beat Immortal Technique. It was like, yo, this is a great event. I won. Peace.
Like,
Pew. when they were like, all right, we're going to do a battle, I was like, fuck, man. Like,
Wow, it doesn't come
now
off
I'm in
like
second
that.
place.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, it definitely in my head was like, it's over. You know, this
I
guy.
think his anger
the
might
guy.
have got to him. Like,
Definitely,
he looked
yeah.
mad.
And
you,
he's
you had
looking
some
at
lines in
me,
your pocket,
right?
too.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I had been like, you know, I'd been battling before that, but like, you know, the battle scene in New York was vibrant, and then it kind of died.
Well,
and
you
so
were
it was
battling.
like, yeah, like
backpedal a little bit. You were battling before.
yeah, so like when I was like 15, 16, 17, like in high school, I was going to like bragging rights, you know, going to these battles, and that's where I battled Jin the first time.
Yeah.
Was like we were probably both 16 or 17, you know?
It's been a couple times. I think.
Yeah,
We'll get
yeah.
into it a little bit, yeah.
And so
You guys friends?
we are, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we actually recently reconnected in a super positive way, and he's like, yeah, definitely friends.
Cool.
Yeah, so like I hadn't been battling. I'd been making music and stuff, and so but I still had the like lines in the pocket or the like
5 mics.
yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
So I was, you know, I'm glad it went the way that it did.
Yeah. No, that must have been thrilling. I mean,
Yeah.
that must have, you know, fueled some of your fire. I mean,
Totally.
That was like,
Totally.
I'm in
Yeah.
this, yeah.
Totally.
Next big moment I know of yours was late night. It was after a Scribble Jam. Thesaurus.
Yeah.
Was that a Scribble Jam?
It was after
Am I wrong?
Spin the Mic.
Oh,
It
Spin
was
the
like
Mic.
this company, Jump Off TV, that was like popping for like 2 or 3 years. They were like one of the go-to leagues, and they did this event, Spin the Mic, where they literally have like the MCs in a circle, and they like spin the mic, and that
Like spin the
determines
bottle, yeah.
that determines what the mat like. They have a thing like a structure that they spin, and whoever the mic lands
So you have
on.
no idea
Yeah.
who you're going to be going up
Yeah.
against.
So I wasn't in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
But-
this was afterwards.
This was afterwards. Yeah, exactly.
You
Thesaurus.
you seemed a little bit more prepared. Than
Yeah, so
Thesaurus.
that has come up a lot recently in
I love. I mean,
Yeah.
it's because I love him.
yeah, no, he's amazing.
He's an
Yeah.
absolute, like, he's amazing.
Yeah, so that's come up in a couple of interviews recently where he feels like
Taco,
I
you
like
can hear it.
I like
Behind
oh
the
yeah,
song.
this is Taco. Vicious vicious Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
That he feels like I hoodwinked him maybe.
Yeah.
He still feels that way.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't spoken to him. We'll speak about it next time I see him.
Okay,
But
sure.
you know, so in New York, like, you know, even in the 90s when people are like, oh, golden age, you know, battling, you would have those lines in your pocket, you know? That you wouldn't, if you showed up and just rapped a whole verse, people would be like, oh man, that's a whole verse, you know? But
That was very much looked down on. Like,
That
it
was definitely
it
looked down on, yeah.
But
The preparation beforehand.
like
Yeah.
but
freestyle was
but
what
like,
it was mostly.
Yeah, but you saying something that was obviously about, you know, okay, now I'm obviously talking about Chris, like I'm obviously talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go into these 4 bars that I use kind of at every battle because I don't have anything, and then that gives me the momentum to launch back into something spontaneous. That was all the gumbo of freestyle, and like all of the, you know, you watch battles of Eminem from Scribble Jam, and he has these 4-bar and 8-bar couplets that he peppers throughout the freestyle, you know, and he's not going in there with a 16-bar verse or whatever, but he's doing this, you know. If you turn my facial tissue to a, you know, everybody in this place will miss you. I'll let the razor split you till they have to staple stitch you, and everybody in this place will miss you if you turn my facial tissue to a racial issue. And like he said that, you know, that era is not on camera in general, and if it is on camera, there's no internet, and if there is an internet, there's no
you can't get away
YouTube.
with anything
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, so then it was like,
Yeah.
yo, I have 5 different 4-bar lines and like 5 2-bar punchlines that if I get into a jam,
I could throw these out.
I can throw these out,
Right.
and then I'm good.
Yeah.
And that was the way people were doing it,
Right.
You know? And
Right.
and so
So it's kind of like a hybrid, a mix of like
Exactly.
freestyling and like stuff in your pocket, right?
exactly, yeah. And so at that time, like that's what I was doing, and I think that the more that you exercise that muscle, and the longer the lead time gets before you know you're going to battle somebody, the more you just like,
start
I can't help.
crafting.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I can't help myself.
yeah,
right?
it's like I'm just thinking of shit,
Yeah.
man. Like I know, like this guy's like it went from like I show up and I don't know who I'm battling, and there's 16 of us or 32 of us, and we have to battle each other till someone gets the top. To there's this one-on-one fight that I have in a week, like, and you know who it is, and you know his name, and you know where he's from.
Well, I mean, I
and,
think
you know?
it's a shame in some ways that being prepared was looked down on, because that's wrong, because it's better when
Right.
people are prepared. There's better lines. It comes up.
And I
like,
think that's where we're at now. You know, is I think that like
you had a lot to do with that, though. You were always coming completely
Yeah.
prepared, and just like I don't know, from everything I hear from some of my friends that are like really into this, that you were a big part in pulling that together. And,
yeah, thanks, man. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I feel that way. I mean, I feel like
if you're coming like all prepped to these things, like if other people aren't, they're just gonna get torn down. I mean,
yeah. I think that I at that point mastered that gumbo thing where like, you know, like there are times where I watch and I know which is like, ooh, I remember that I had thought of that line before, and I know that happened like as I was saying it. But I can watch and I can be like, you can't tell the difference here. Like this feels like 32 bars, but I just that was the zone I was in.
Do that. It's so seamless.
Yeah, and like I remember having my freestyle. Because I also was like going to hanging out with my friends and doing shit that was 100% spontaneous, where I'm like, you know, bitching about finals and talking about smoking blunts and I fucked this chick and whatever it is, and all that would be totally spontaneous. And I remember at the time just being so exercised in it that when I would, you know, the right amount of weed and the right amount of alcohol and the right amount of my friends around and the right amount of girls around, and like being in that perfect zone and literally like saying rhymes as they were happening, and then also simultaneously having this thought process where I was writing the next 4 bars, and like literally, and then also having this third thought process that was like, holy shit, this is happening, you know, and literally being like, as I'm saying, okay, I've thought of the next 2 bars, so I just have to say them, and while I'm saying them, I'm thinking of the next shit too, and then another part of me is up here, you know, in the
amazing
clouds,
you're like working on like 5 or 6 different levels. Your brain's crazy like that, you know. I think I'm really drawn to the aspect of battle rap where you like where you pack so many meanings into so few words, you know, and like I just think that you're amazing at that, you know, and I think that you know, having like that forethought and sort of pre-planning allows you to get even better at that, you know, like, you know, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all, you know, because my enjoyment is increased so much when someone comes at me and says something that has so many levels to it that you know it can't be spontaneous, you know, and like I just think that's amazing, you know,
and
like
when you're listening to it, you get the chance to have that aha moment, like when you get what they're saying.
I love
like,
that.
What?
Yeah, and it makes it like, and I think it's particularly suited for the YouTube era, right? Because it's rewatch value.
I mean, battle rap lives on YouTube. Like,
I mean, if you can pause it and you can go like,
I was like,
oh, there's 37 more videos here I can look at.
There's 4 hours.
Totally.
Right. But I mean, I just love just like pausing battles and just thinking for a second and being like,
holy shit.
Did he just do that?
Like,
go back. Google a few words or like some contextual analysis and be like, holy shit. Like, that's like so deep, you know? Like, I love that stuff, you know?
Totally. Yeah, me too.
You know?
That's what does it for me these days.
Yeah.
And,
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, just I was looking at the next battle that I think that was big for you was Jin, like we were talking about. I think it was 2007. Jin was signed with the Rough Riders for a little bit, wasn't he?
I think so. I don't know if he still was at that point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he still was at that point.
He was very well known. And
yeah, he was the guy. I mean, maybe at that moment he wasn't like sizzling hot, but like, you know, Jin, you know, he's the real thing in that he was in the fucking, you know, there are probably more battles from Jin that aren't on camera than there are on camera.
So he's
like,
been in it.
Yeah, man. Like he's committed. He was committed to hip hop. That's who he was as a person for sure. And like he. When we battled at Bragging Rights at age 16 or whatever, he had just, I think, recently moved to Queens from Florida and was like, oh, I'm here now. I'm entering all the battles here because I was in all the battles in Orlando or wherever it was. And he won that night. And then he went on 106 and Park and, you know, won 6. You know, he was the first one, I think, that won so many weeks in a row that it was like, then that's when they defined the like, if you win 6 weeks in a row, you get retired, and then he also got signed to Rough Riders and like announced it on the 6th win. You know what I mean? So like, and I think something that he did that was important. A few things were, he was Asian, which is different, you know, and that I think opened up the playing field in a lot of ways. And then he also really came from. People would say he came from like what they call like a backpack background, which is more like hip hoppy, nerdy. You know, more Nas, less Jay-Z.
More
you know?
Jocks.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but at the same time, I think he a lot of times the backpack thing. There are people that fall into that category that also like all of it, both areas, you know, of hip hop, and he definitely came from that. I love hip hop, and I love Mobb Deep, and I also love Nas, and I see those things as part of the same fabric, and so
he's more of like a unifier than like it's a separator, you know.
Definitely, and a unifier. I think that's a great word because he came from a freestyle background, which was very much not street. At that point, like the street rap style was like I have a verse and you have a verse,
gun
bars, just like. We rap our verses back to back,
right?
You know what I mean, and whoever runs out of verses first, or you know,
it has nothing to do with what's going on with me and you right now.
Not about the freestyling. Wasn't like cool. It was like verses, and so he stepped into the 106 context, and then onto the on Smack DVD, and did the backpack thing against street rappers, and was successful with it.
Yeah.
So I think that that was.
That's bridging a gap.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
changes a lot of minds, turns a lot of heads. Yeah.
So
definitely.
With that, contest, that battle rap with Jin, that was probably a big moment. That probably propelled you a little bit. I mean,
definitely.
That's one of my favorite videos to watch. You're over that pool table.
Yeah.
There's all this side betting going on.
Yeah. That's great. Yo, I miss Fight Club. That was Fight. That was
Fight
just
Club, yeah.
Fight Club. Yeah, and so some like historical like. What is it? Lady Luck versus Remy Ma is like another historical battle that happened there. But I miss Fight Club, man.
Yeah.
It was like I was there a bunch of times, and like it was like a pit fight. It was like dog fighting. You know what I mean? Whereas like invite only, strict security, small room, a lot of side betting.
Yeah. Underground,
like you don't know about it. Like
put up a watch that.
That night. Yeah. So we, I met this dude Coop, who's like a legit. He's a hustler from Jersey that definitely, made his name in the street and then transitioned into music, and. I met him online that night, and he was like, "Yo, you're Solomon. You're gonna battle tonight, right?" He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna bet on you," and I was like, "Cool."
He told you that prior online.
Yeah.
No
we were
pressure.
outside.
No pressure.
And I was like, "Cool, man. That's cool," And then when we got to the table, they were like, "Yo, it's $2,000, $5,000, whatever it was that we were battling over," because they would put up a pot, any side bets. And this guy and Coop stepped up and was like, "Yeah, I got 1,000 on Solomon," Yeah. And so a lot of pressure, Like I don't know this guy. I see the like humongous like plate of diamonds on his necklace, and like I can get the vibe of the background he comes from.
Yeah.
And he just stepped up like into the camera. It was a play for him too.
Totally.
To be. Yeah. But a lot of pressure, and they were like, "Oh, $1,000, Jin. You want to bet?" And he was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, of course." And he said it so nonchalantly that Coop was like, "Oh yeah, I got another 1,000." Yeah. And I think that basically like Jin's camp, this guy had probably knots on hand.
Right.
He could have kept going like that for a while. And I think Jin's camp had the first 1,000 in cash, but didn't have the second 1,000. And so his manager put the watch up as like collateral. So there's like a pile of money and like,
we haven't even wrapped yet.
Yeah,
yeah. And there's a different battle going on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole video, like even the sweatshirt of the I don't know who's moderating it.
International P.
International P.
Hold it down, yeah.
You were talking about Jin a little bit, and you were talking about the unification, as Chris was saying. When you battled Math Hoffa, which is also one of my favorites.
One of my favorites too, yeah.
I just want both you guys just killing it.
Yeah.
So I think you could help us understand, like, what's the significance of that? Because there's Smack URL, which is a little bit different than Grindhouse. Is like
Grind Time.
Grind Time. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you were invited to
Smack. Yeah. So
I don't know much about this. So
for sure. So yeah. So like the leagues that fall in the kind of like backpack realm, where like Scribble Jam was an event. It was like this is like pre-league.
I remember in college, one of my boys was always like, "Yo, I got that new Scribble tape."
Yeah. Right. That's that era where like the battle happens and it's like months and you have to like get the tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Little Maxwell,
yeah. And like it's once a year and
like
everybody migrates. Yeah. Exactly. It's like that was such a cool era, and I found out about Scribble Jam in graffiti magazines because it started as a graffiti like event where like guys would get together and do graffiti, and then they added the rap battles, I think, and added the breaking battles, and I was just, my head was totally in graffiti in high school, and I read, but I was also, you know, trying to have a 6-step and break dance and like, you know,
do it all, huh?
Yeah, beatbox, and I was making beats, and I was rapping and writing graffiti. All
Did you have a graffiti tag?
Yeah, AM, AYEM.
Nice.
Yeah, and
nice.
I have. It's probably in boxes now, but I have black books and all that stuff.
Nice.
I was definitely heavy into it, and actually, Action Bronson's. I went to synagogue with this kid Luck, who had the crew SM, and his boy May, who is Mayhem Loren, who's like Action Bronson's right hand man, had a crew called ART, and they put it together to be Smart, and Smart Crew is like. I don't really have anything to do with making them what they are now, but I was part of Smart Crew like when it was a baby and not significant yet, and now Smart Crew is like legendary graffiti crew that Action Bronson is from, and
Do you know
Mayhem
him
Loren. We didn't know each other growing up. I've connected with him and, you know, talked about our mutual friends, but I don't really know him like that. But Mayhem Loren, who's his right hand man, like I used to go out to Queens and go bombing with him and stuff like that, you know. So it's just funny how that shit comes full circle. But yeah, I found out about Scribble Jam in a graffiti magazine. So yeah, sorry, that's super sidetracked.
No,
so
it's
backpack,
but wherever it takes us.
So yeah, backpack leagues were like Grind Time, Scribble Jam. Even jump off's kind of backpacky. Now King of the Dot kind of occupies that space, though it's more
both, like,
more balanced, much more balanced.
Absolutely.
And so at the time, you know, something that I feel like I brought to the game, similar to Jin, was that, you know, I was, you know, came in second place at Scribble Jam, went to you know, these battles no one knows about now, like Brainstorm in Seattle and Battle for Midwest Supremacy in like Kentucky, and doing all these like tournament freestyle backpack battles, and then coming to New York and doing these one-on-one street battles, and then being in Fight Club. And then getting invited to Smack DVD, and I think
that was a cool moment for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, because like Smack, I grew up watching Smack. You know what I mean? Like it definitely was one of the quintessential like pillars of battle rap, and so I got this call from, I think it was from Eric Beasley, who's like who runs it with Smack.
Business guy, I think.
He was working for labels. I don't think he works for the labels anymore now. I think he's just all Smack URL. But until like only a couple years ago, he was like a label, like A&R, you know, in the music industry, and then involved with Smack in a business way. And so he called me, and I was at our old apartment in Brooklyn, Fulton Street in Clinton Hill, in the bodega, and I got the call, and it was like, man, you know, I'm still. As much as I always had this like arrogant entitlement of like, I am the best, I'm gonna be on Rolling Stone, like I am Slash, and it's not as good as him yet.
There's still humbling moments.
Yeah, no, I still have this feeling of like, I'm also just this fucking like white kid from the Upper West Side, like that grew up as a like geeked out fan of Smack DVD, and now I'm gonna be on it, like whoa, you know. And so that was crazy. And I think that battle was really. You know, I think that moment in time was really significant because aside from Jin, it was like the second time that someone that didn't come from a street background was on Smack DID. And
I didn't know Jin was there. I
that kind of helps to legitimize like the style, you know. Like I mean,
totally.
It's like, you know, like suddenly people are starting to notice that. This works, and
those worlds needed to combine.
And for me that was always an agenda, and it was always because I remember it even as a kid, even when I was like before I had any traction or notoriety, identifying that like, yo, I listen to Company Flow and I listen to Jay-Z, and I'm one of the only kids even in my group of friends that's on this shit where like I listen to all of it. And though, you know, at the time, like those people were supposed to be enemies, you know, like, oh, you listen to Jay-Z, like,
that separation. Like, both of those were my tape deck. Like,
no, totally. And like, so for me, it was like Smack DVD is so dope. I would never be like, this shit's whack. It's written, it's street. And then I also would never be like, oh, this shit's backpack and freestyle. It's corny. It was always like, man, all this shit is just so dope and exciting and hip hop to me. And so I always wanted to. I never would see Smack DVD and be like, oh, I can't compete in that environment, or I don't want to compete in that environment because it's in this lane. It just, you know, I grew up with dudes like that, street dudes. I grew up with super wealthy kids and kids that were from the projects, and like all this shit was around me. So there would never be a time that I would not want to participate in something that I was attracted.
Why would you want to be closing doors? You know, like, I mean, opportunities everywhere. You know, like
exactly. So I think that moment, you know, the Jin verse on Smack DVD was really significant, but then me versus Math kind of accelerated that because I think that battle was a more like technical battle, and the styles had evolved even more.
Where there was a whole lot of preparation and writing.
Yeah, exactly. Way more
like
preparation.
At that point, from what I can sense, at that point it's accepted.
Totally, definitely, and
that helps with battling someone like Math because
he's a beast.
Right
and I think it also, one of the things that the street genre was lacking at that time was the spontaneity, but the specificity that came with the spontaneity. You know, because guys were showing up with maybe a couple lines that were specific to the person, but it was a lot of really generalist stuff. And I think at that point. I think Sirius Jones versus Mook also on Smack DVD was pretty pointed at each other, but I think that me versus Math was like we were only talking about each other.
Yeah, it was pure.
You know?
I mean, it was like
this is for you.
I'm looking right at you. Yeah. And it got personal fast too. You know, I mean, which is great.
Yeah. And she was there.
Yeah.
Were you there?
Yeah. She was ready to.
I'll have to watch that again and look for you.
Yeah, she was ready to. You know, Math is.
You were part of Iron's crew.
Yeah.
Nice.
She Math. Is a real street dude from Brooklyn, you know, and he showed up with.
Is he the one who knocked someone out?
Right. So
the
battle before me,
he someone out.
He punched Dose in the face, which was like a huge moment. And the moment he was coming off of that, I was stepping into, you know, me, you know, Aaron, white kid from Upper West Side.
So you're nervous.
Yeah, and he showed up with his people who are goons from Brooklyn, and my wife happens to also be a goon from Brooklyn, and so
Coney Island.
Yeah, so her, you know, the her spidey senses went up, and she like, you know, how like it was in Fat Beats, and you know the it's for like retail packaging where there's like a grid on the wall of like, you know, interlaced bars, and then they hook on a hook and you like slide the packages on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like but it's almost like an ice pick. So she like took one of these off the fucking wall and is like, she took one off.
Ready to shank somebody?
Yeah, she took it off the wall and had it between her hands, like ready to shank one of.
This is not like a good story to tell.
It's a great story to tell.
Classy lady, everybody.
This is not representative. I'm sure.
I'm gonna watch some video in a new light now. You know.
Yeah. So Matt, dodged a bullet there, man. You dodged it. You ain't even know. Nah. Matt. Shout out to Matt. That's another person who I have a friendship with also, and he's the man.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. I think he's one of the greatest.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it earlier, but like something that just boggles my mind is that interplay between the improvisation things and like, you know, he's bringing up Eminem, and like right away you're like, you know, if I'm Slim Sadie, I guess, you know, there'll be nothing after Math. Are you thinking that he's going to say that, or are you coming up on the spot?
No, that that's a funny one because at that time, you know, coming from having done all of the like kind of backpack shit, and then also even the street battles, I felt like the white thing and the like Eminem comparison was like old. Like if you had
it was
gone
so
there,
played out,
Why
right?
would we go to that?
yeah, I never would have like it was so corny and played out from the world that I came from. Like if you had gone to Scribble Jam and said that, people would have been like, boo, like you're so fucking whack. So like I think Math was coming from the Fight Club smack, where it was really street and a little bit insulated from that. So that was still relevant because there weren't a lot of white kids competing in that space. So for him it wasn't played out. And so I went there, like I was super surprised by all of his white angles. You know what I mean? Which seems weird.
Yeah.
But it was just like, because I had already gotten that, and so that was totally spontaneous, because I really like never in a million years would have, which it seems almost like false or naive as I'm saying it, because it's like, what? Of course that's what he would have come with, but at that time,
something that wasn't in your world anymore.
It just wasn't, and it had been, and then because it had been, and people started, it got kind of weaned out, and also I think because people started knowing who I was, it became less relevant, because they're like, oh, you're in this culture, you're good at what you do, like we can't discredit you by just pointing out the obvious that you're a white kid, you have glass, whatever it is. It's like
already way beyond that.
Yeah, we're past that, So that was totally spontaneous. Yeah.
The battle, we're talking about Eminem, ENAS. That battle with ENAS was in Detroit, right?
That was actually in that was in Miami. That was in Miami. Yeah, she was there too.
Yeah,
she was probably ready to kill somebody else that weekend.
What I noticed
in a classy way,
no
murder.
Stiletto heel.
Very classy. Yes, she's done that too. We got into a fight, not rap related. We got into a fight with some kid that was like being disrespectful to one of my friend's girlfriends, and she had her heel in her hand. The same way that she had the shank from the record store. I turned around after things cooled off, and she was like huffing and puffing with one of her heels in her hand, like ready. Neck. I guess neck stab is kind of your move. The neck stab.
But that's love.
That is.
That's love.
Love.
Yeah.
But I noticed with that, I don't know if this is the case with a lot of battle rappers, but there's a lot of like the return of Iron Solomon.
Yeah.
Like, this is Iron Solomon's return.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, you're obviously probably chasing a music career at the same time. So you're not gonna look funny for some reason. But like. You that could be because you were focusing on your music at the time, or is it what's
So for me it was multifaceted. Like I at that time was definitely, for me the battle thing was always like launch the music career. It was like, oh, this is, I can't really book a show.
Ends to a means.
Exactly, yeah. And like I can't book a show. I can't get on stage and have people care about it. But I could go to a battle and it's packed. And people react right away. Yeah. I get my fix, and I got my name out there, get a little bit of money, and then there were people that, Immortal Technique launched his career off of that. Even Poison Pen, who was like involved in the scene, and then had, independent label deals to put out singles. C-Ray's Walls, like guys that in that era were like gods to me, along with Jay-Z, even though probably so many people now are like, who? They're super significant pillars of the culture. And Jen, you know what I mean? Launching a music career. And music, it was always music for me, and battle and hip hop, always music. Then hip hop became the focus, and then battle rap was the means to an end, like you said. And so at the time,
you notice you got to
I'm getting I'm like I'm doing good at this. Like I better keep it going, you know. So at that time, focusing on music, and then also being strategic about who I chose from a branding and trajectory standpoint, that like, because I'm trying to launch a career, there needs to be a narrative here, and not just from a purely marketing perspective, but also because, and I was talking to Direct is like one of the luminaries of our culture, who was one of the founders of Grind Time, and now is in a media, documenting the culture capacity. And we had a conversation about this. That for me, like Jay-Z is the greatest of all time to me, and it's not just that
third.
It's not, and I say that not to say that he is the best lyrically, or but I think that in terms of the total package,
the catalog,
the catalog,
the volume of
exactly, and
what's out there.
a piece of like, I wouldn't argue with somebody. My personal preference is him over Nas, but I'm a huge Nas fan too. But I wouldn't argue with somebody to be like Jay-Z is a better like lyricist than not. I wouldn't argue that, but I would say, look at to me, the creativity is, we're talking about macro and micro, right? Like the creativity exists on macro and micro levels, right? In hip hop, you spit a punchline or you spit a bar, and that's hip hop, and that's a piece of creativity. Then you expand that to a verse, and that's macro and micro right there. Then you turn that into a song with hooks, and now there's that, and then there's this album,
made it a dope line, I made it a dope song.
Right, exactly. Right. I mean, that's an amazing example of Jay-Z identifying that's a macro micro right there, And so then you have the album, but then you have the career. You know what I mean?
The tour.
And like to me, Jay-Z's like arc, and it's still going on.
Yeah.
Like him, part of his artistry is not just his cipher, not just the bar, not just the 16, not just the song or the album, but it's also the business, and it's also the branding, and it's also the cultural influence. And for me, I feel like in general, let's say Aerosmith, releases one album and that's it. Like, you don't have the conversation of if are they one of the best.
No, they're not. And no matter how good,
that album is. And so to me, a piece of a person's artistry is about the storyline and the package, and I think hip hop in particular, where it's about the extracurriculars. You know what I mean? Like rock and roll and other genres. Hip hop, more than any other genre, draws in real life or imagined life, and is about, hey, this is my music, but this is what I'm doing outside of my music, and so because of that, for me, part of my creativity was creating a narrative of Iron Solomon and this package of the more macro package of the art that wasn't just about battle everybody no matter who they are and keep proving you're the best rapper. It was also like, okay, prove that you're great, ascend to greatness in this environment, and then create a storyline that feels like we can look at that and be like, that package of that story is a piece of artwork and creativity.
And it's also just a facet of what you have going.
And it's just one piece of, here's the backstory, and now here's the album. You know what I mean? So it was. So for me, and that's another thing I've been criticized for is like, oh, you picked the right opponents at the right time, and I'm like, motherfucker, I picked the right opponents at the right time, son. Like,
absolutely.
But you still showed up and performed, and like we're successful. So it's only half the battle picking the right people.
Totally, and took it like super seriously. And every time that I had that like return moment, was like, how can I push this to another level?
Yeah, you're not phoning it in. I mean, you're doing your work.
And I feel like if you watch the Math battle, if you watch the Jin battle, watch the Ines battle, and watch other battles that went on that same year, you'll see things in my battles that are new and are not happening, or are like, wow, that was really advanced wordplay beyond what other people were doing at that time, and now everybody's doing it. And or like in the Ines battle, I did like a call and response thing with the crowd, and that was one of the things where I was like, everybody's dope lyrically, but like, what are people not doing right now? Ooh, I've never really seen somebody do this. If I'm going to come back, I'm not just going to come back and be like, I'm still really good.
Is that the one where you brought back the line from the Jin?
Right, I ain't going to rap out
your background.
Right. Which I feel like was also like one of the beginnings of slogans. Which now everybody has a slogan,
But like the crowd went nuts right away.
Yeah.
Like you must be like, I
was like, all right, here we go.
They know me. Like,
they know it. Yeah, all that. And then like shit like. One of the lines from that battle, Ness makes music that's blunt guts trash. So when he played his 2 hits for Puff passed.
Puff passed.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah,
really? That I felt like, even as I was writing it, I was like, people aren't even going to catch that I'm saying he makes music that's blunt guts trash. That the blunt guts is part of the whole. They're going to get the Puff pass thing, and they might not even get that I'm saying he played his 2 hits for Puff. You know that
it's all correlated on
right.
one thing.
Like even as I was writing it, I was like, people aren't going to get. They're going to get the punchline, but they're not going to get the setup.
Yeah. Right.
So I feel like that's what I always strove to do was like watch the math battle and that I was just talking to Shoddy Horror and he was like, yo, I watched that battle and you were saying, math for the record, you're getting waxed in a vinyl store. And that and he was like, I never saw people weren't doing that then, So that was even if people are like, yo, you picked the right opponents that you lined up with and big names that weren't necessarily good comp for you. It was like, but I showed up and did shit that no one else was doing. Now everybody does.
You were still pushing the art form,
right? Yeah, and people who were like, you were too prepared. They're super prepared now.
No, I think that's great. I think in the math battle you said. You've got garbage punchlines and plastic smiles. I recycled your rhymes to trash you lyrically.
Right,
it's just great, That's the kind of stuff that I'm drawn to,
Right, and I had it was coming off of the Little Matthew. Like he battled my boy Nems.
Great, yeah.
He battled my boy Nems and said, little bitch. He did that, and he was like, I call you little bitch because I forget what he says, but he's like, I'm calling you little bitch because that's a better name for you than your name. Yeah. So Nems was like, yo, fuck this dude. You got to get him back for me. So that's why I took his thing and said, little Matthew. Well, I'm calling you Math because your real name is so bitch. I would call you little bitch. Because he called Nems little, he kept saying little bitch. So like I would call, I'm calling you little Matthew. I would call you little bitch, but your real name's so bitch I don't have to. What's the line? Recycle? You got garbage punchlines and plastic similes. Right. So I recycled your rhymes to trash you lyrically. Yeah, exactly. So it was like, so there's all those. So then all the garbage, recycle, trash you. Yeah. That layer, and then also the referencing his other battle that he did against my boy. So yeah.
So you had your boys back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the great stuff. I mean, like. The inside jokes are peppered in there that not everyone may get. Totally. And that stuff's great too.
Like the more you get into it, the deeper you go, the more you know, the more you enjoy it. Yeah.
Right.
Because you get what's going on, and it becomes addictive.
Yeah, definitely. And you get into the soap opera because it's like...
Yeah, it's like a soap opera, like
WWE.
It is, big time.
It's like, where's that reference come from? I gotta find out why he's doing that.
And I think that's a gift and a curse too, because it's like, when I started getting, as I'm getting back into it now, when I started getting back into it, I hadn't been watching, and I would watch battles and be like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, I'm one of the guys. Like, I'm supposed to be able to pick this shit up. But if you didn't see, if you don't know who's
if you sleep on it, you're out.
And you don't know who's in this crew, and you don't know about this guy choked in this battle, and now he's saying something. Like, you kind of have to know all that shit, which is cool. But it is a deterrent too. It's a pain in the ass, and it makes it in a way it makes it less accessible to outsiders. But at the same time, it makes it
a minute.
Right.
I was like,
but there's more to latch onto, where it's like because
there's enough on the surface as is
exactly
with the wordplay, and then there's a lot
and again,
more
going back to what we were saying about baseball, where it's like you can watch a baseball game and not know anything about the history of baseball and enjoy it, but then there are the people that like know the history of the club, and they're like, oh, the guy who's coaching the team now, he played on the Yankees, and his father, and he
was a scout or something like that.
And like so I think that's part of what's like. It's weird how there's this insular self-referential thing that can kind of raise the bar for the point of entry of getting interested, but at the same time it creates so much more to latch onto. The way that the ball club narratives give people more to latch onto with baseball, it's like
it draws you in deeper.
Like I can watch. You can watch baseball and enjoy it. No way I'm going to be caught up on the decades of history just by watching a game. But the people who are and want to dig into it, there's so much to dig into.
Probably getting off a little bit more.
Exactly. You're like, and I think hip hop has always had that kind of like, you think about graffiti and wild style when graffiti was on the trains, and then people are like, you know what? I want to code this even more, and I'm going to do it so complicated that only the people your regular guys on the train aren't into it. Man. It's such an inside joke. It's like you guys are already not into this shit when you can read it. Well, how about when I fuck it up so much that you can't even read it? Exactly. So I think there is an element of like, this is our thing over here, and you don't get it, and I'm going to make it even harder to get. So
let's bring it current. The most recent battle was King of the Dot.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, that was a big event. Like
Yeah.
the card is insane. I mean,
So can I just jump in for naivety here? Is that battle rap going mainstream? King of the Dot. I mean, is that like? I mean, you have like the underground league, but like King of the Dot is like it's a pay-per-view thing, right? I mean, like so
they stream a bunch of those.
They do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So King of the Dot. And so Smack DVD evolved into URL, Ultimate Rap League. And so they call it Smack, call it URL.
Okay.
And Smack and King of the Dot are the two like biggest pillars of battle rap. I think Smack might have more viewership and a little more, and it has more of a like rap industry support.
Okay.
But King of the Dot, like, Scribble Jam, Grind Time, Jump Off, all of the more hip hoppy backpack leagues, have kind of culminated into King of the Dot. And also King of the Dot, they have all the 75% of the guys that battle on Smack also battle on King of the Dot.
Okay, all right.
So they have much more of an open playing field and a diversity of performers, and a very clean brand. The people that are involved are like real professionals of Kyle Gray Avocado, who's like director of all visual content. He comes from and I hope I'm not giving out too much information on him, but he comes from a movie background. Like he'll be filming the battles and editing and doing the motion graphics.
Yeah, it seems real glossy and slick and stuff like that. So that's why I ask. If
you go to see any big budget action movie in the theaters, look for his name.
Okay,
because he does compositing and graphics for like.
He's the Michael Bay of battle rap.
Michael Bay of battle rap. I got to tell him that. Because he I'm trying to think of Fast and Furious, Avengers, these types of movies. Yeah. He's in the graphics credits.
Okay.
So it's
I'm sorry to interrupt your question now, Mike. I just
no,
want
to know that as well.
Yeah,
man. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, he's the man. Kyle Gray is the man, and has played. I think he's somewhat sung hero, but also probably unsung hero in terms of elevating the visual of battle
and they
rap.
put together like a big thing. It felt big. I mean, that was like the card, Bender versus Soul, Source Definition, that immaculate
Paste.
Wow,
awesome.
And then You and Daylight.
And Disaster Dumbfounded was another one of those.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Chris, I don't know if you know about Daylight. I was trying to tell you a little bit about this, but he is a
very unique
person to say the least. He has performed homosexual charades, attempted to defecate on stage.
True.
I think that was just last
He
year.
wore a shirt covered in mirrors when he battled you.
He took a nap on stage, I guess, first math.
Yep.
He's rubbed his scrotum sweat on someone's face. He's removed all his clothing on stage, and he is dressed like a slave and a Ku Klux Klan member. So you're going in, and
his face is tattooed like Spawn.
Yes.
It's funny that you can go through that whole list and not mention that, and it's still by the way, his face is tattooed like Spawn.
So antics,
antics. But so you're going in. Are you thinking like, what's gonna happen here?
Yes and no. So I chose.
But you chose him, right?
Yeah, I chose.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
How it worked in this situation.
Yeah, he was the person that I wanted to come back.
Why?
So when I heard about him, like I just hated him from the hearing that list. You're like, what? Like fuck.
It's not pure.
I was like, fuck this. Like
none of this sounds like battle rap.
No, and I was like, and I mean, the knife wielding wife can tell you, like, I was like, see, that's why I'm not involved anymore, because if there's a chance that people would call for me to battle somebody that does shit like this, like I don't even want to be put in that category, But that was obviously snap judgment,
Right.
And then I started watching his battles, and I was like, damn, like this dude is fucking lyrical. Like he is one of the best at the like super coded double entendre and says shit that is like ridiculous. And I also, I'm a studier of culture, and I feel like he comes from Grape Street in Watts in L.A., which is like Grape Street Crip is like one of the renowned Crip subsets, and he's from like the project building where they started. So he is
so many of what you said it just now made sense to me.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, in the battle. Yeah. So he's from
It's all clicking. Yeah.
So he's from Jordan Downs, which is like the project building on Grape Street that is like the epicenter of Grape Street Crips. So he's like clearly fucking signed and certified. You come from the streets. You are a Crip for real, and you come from the streets. And so for me, watching him and seeing how intelligent and strategic he clearly was, it was like, yo, all of these dudes are in battles trying to convince you that they have guns and they are violent and whatever it is. This guy is clearly from that background, no questions, and most people would accidentally, homophobia is so rampant in hip hop, and not just homophobia, but the rigidity of the identity paradigms of who you can be as a person, right? You can be this type of package and wear these clothes, and that's who you are, and it can be pretty rigid. It's loosening up.
I was going to say it's changing.
It's loosening up. Kanye, Pharrell, even Lil Wayne, Danny Brown,
Frank Ocean.
Yeah. There are the palette of who you can be is expanding and becoming a little more flexible, which is awesome. Chance is awesome, and like. So for me, it was like, people who are not gay would say, oh, put the mic to your mouth and be like, pause, get your ayo, like, no homo, like, because put the mic to your mouth is like a accidental euphemism for you sucking dick and being gay somehow. So which I get, I participate in that line of comedy too, but he's going out there and saying, yeah, I'd fuck Puffy. I mean, it's Puffy. Of course I'd have sex with Puffy, and he's saying that to get attention, but I also feel like what I felt like I identified in him was that he's just freeing himself from the restrictions of the hip hop paradigm and being like
just powerful.
So powerful and so impressive and so liberating and so cool to be like, dude, like
he's unhindered.
He's not gay, like, and that's funny, and he got a lot of attention, and like people take it seriously where they're like, yo, I would never say and it's like really like him saying that doesn't change anything about who he is at all. It doesn't make him gay. Yeah. And even if he was gay, then he's gay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. So like on so many levels, we're just, I respected that. And I was like, that's really fucking cool. Yeah. And I like that. Now the things that initially made me be like, I hate this guy, made me be like, I love this guy.
You had to look deeper.
Yeah. Totally. Uncover the layers of what he's doing. Yeah. And then I also was like watching his battles and being like, this shit's incredible. Like the level of wordplay is stuff that I felt like I was doing that people weren't getting and that now he's doing and everybody's getting. So you
thought it was a perfect match.
I thought it was a perfect match. Yeah.
Both you guys we bring, trying to come up to a certain
totally
level of that,
and I felt like the thing with the Mook, like my last battle before that against Mook, which went like horribly for me, was like partly because there was such a narrative. There was like this wrestler narrative of like, I identify with Mook as a street guy and I don't like Solomon because I think he's corny, and there's that element of why the battle was just kind of a shitty battle because people are like, fuck this guy, I like this guy.
Yeah, everyone showed up with their prejudgments and
exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like Daylight is polarizing, but he also is unifying in that he's just pushed past that. Yeah. Like, the dude tried to take a shit on stage, and next time people still showed up to see him.
I mean, he keeps people guessing. It's difficult to categorize,
So I felt like it was such a weird and interesting matchup that it was the matchup that I felt like had the least potential for narrative to ruin it.
Right.
Because I think if I had gone against Disaster or Pat's, if I had gone against any of the other people in the who are like at the top of the King of the Dot realm, it would have been like, oh, Solomon went over there to smack and lost, and now he's going to come over here. Fuck him for doing that. I want Disaster to kill him. Yeah. Or I'm glad he's back. Fuck Disaster. I want Solomon to kill him. Or Pat Stay or Ilmac. Whoever it would have been, I think there would have been, we're still dealing with narrative. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to just like have a moment that was a great moment without the I hope he kills him and ruins his career. You know,
in the I'm just gonna jump in here a second.
No,
In the post battle interview, if I could jump ahead here to the end of it, you did an interview with Chris Mitchell, and you said that in coming back to World Domination 5, you wanted to be the most comfortable in your skin. You wanted to be more comfortable in your skin than ever before. Yeah. So this kind of sounds like what you're alluding to. Like if you strip away all that sort of prejudice, and it's just you and Daylight battling, you can just be the most comfortable because there's no narrative to get in the way. Right?
Exactly.
That's great. Yeah.
It's like and like that. That is part of why I stepped away from just music in general, was because like we're all ego and sensitivity, and like I definitely like take personally shit. You reach it on the internet, or like you see something go wrong, and it's like it'll fuck up your day. You know what I mean? And like I don't want to ever feel that way. I want to be able to read something horrible someone says and be like, whatever. That's their opinion.
I try not to read comments about.
Totally. It's hard, man. Like, and so I wanted to come back and be like, you know what? Like I've always been myself, but I've been also brand and image conscious, and I just don't want to care. I want to just come back and get back to a point of, I'm not really pursuing a music career now. I can just root into the battle rap and have fun with that. And I felt like
the best bars you can.
Exactly.
Right.
And I felt like Daylight would show up with the same intention. He definitely doesn't want to kill me. He wants to have a great moment that helps catapult his career and is a classic that can be like, wow, that was a dope moment that Daylight was a part of. And I called him too. Everybody does this like call someone out in a battle, or like my manager calls Smack and Smack calls his manager, and now we're going to battle, and we have spoken and been at events together, but we never communicate about the fact that we're battling. It's like silly. And I was just like, got his phone number from Nems, my boy Nems, who Math called little bitch. Who's not a little bitch. He's from Coney Island, just Nems if you're listening. So I got Daylight's phone number from Nems, and I hit him up and was like, let me just communicate with this guy directly. And I said to him everything I said to you guys about like, hey, this is what I think you're doing. I think you're making commentary on the rigidity of the paradigms, and you're breaking out of that, and I think that's awesome. And he was like, thank you, exactly.
You get it.
Right, you get it. I mean, I thought the battle was all about good rhymes, good vibes, and respect. That's what it seemed like to me.
It was like a celebration.
Right.
Which was so awesome.
Right. Each other
exactly. It's like, when I was like so happy
that part where he starts dancing with you.
Right. Like I was happy to see him cooking too. Like when he's dissing me, it was just like, I'm like, yes, he's doing so good, you know?
Yeah.
And so after that phone call, it just further solidified it for me, where I was like, this dude does these antics and people look at him a certain way, but I think he deserves to be in the top realm. It would be cool for me to help facilitate that. I think it'll be a really interesting matchup that people won't expect. There's all the time in the world to go for the guys that everybody thinks I should go against. Like, let's just have some fun and do something cool. And I was confident for that reason. I know that he identifies that his antics have overshadowed his lyricism, but he really takes his lyricism seriously. And I knew I was confident beforehand, and then was even more confident after speaking to him that he was going to take me and the moment and the opportunity seriously enough to not do fucking antics. Yeah.
But he still showed up with mirrors on his shirt.
Showed up with mirrors. Yeah,
that's acceptable.
Yeah. But that was great though, because you rappers like I'm battling myself though, So
right,
you had some fun. You had some fun with that too.
How much before did you see the mirror costume?
That was totally spontaneous. We flipped the coin.
You can't even tell.
Yes. And I hope that people see that and then go back to the stuff that they're like, man, he wrote all that shit, and can be like, all right, maybe he didn't write all that shit. Yeah, because literally, I mean, his wife or his girl is really cool too, and we were hanging out. Like, we were, she, my wife Sharon got along with her really well, and he's in a sweatshirt and a fitted the whole weekend, and
camera on that.
Right, for real. We'll go get matching face tattoos and shit. So I just saw it when he came out, and we did the coin toss, and I won, and the default is to be like, you go first.
Yeah, you went first.
Yeah, and I chose him to go first at first.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, fuck, like he's got this mirror shit. I should say something. He's probably got something to say about that. Yeah. I should say something about
take
that.
away the steam.
Yeah, and just to have like, this is an opportunity there's so much here. There's so much material here.
How could you not, right?
Yeah, it would be a waste for me not to say something. And then also Bishop Brigante, who's one of the hosts, has this slogan. Yeah, like he has this slogan, take that fucking mirror down now, bitch. And like I didn't know this before, but I guess a mirror.
Again, I was dying to know what he's talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know. I learned this after the battle that I guess a mirror is when someone posts a bootleg of the official video. And so his take that mirror down is being like, yo, like take down your pirated version of what we're posting, which I never got. I was always like, and Bishop is my boy. Like I go way back with Bishop, and I just didn't.
Calls a pirated.
Yeah, it's like a mirror. That's
totally
a mirror.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's
like a reflection. It's a reflection of his quality, his product. Yeah.
So me being like, oh shit, Bishop is here, and that's his slogan, and he's wearing that, and so then I was like, yo, Day, organic. Is it cool if I switch, if I flip it up like I go first? And Daylight was like, cool. And in interviews after that, Daylight was like, I made Solomon go first by wearing the mirror suit. I forced him to go first. I don't know if, I don't know if, I don't know how for me, maybe it was. But so all of that was like, not to say I came up with it as I was saying it, but it was all
kind of
right.
It all clicked though.
Within like 30, within 30 seconds, a couple minutes of being like, he's wearing a mirror suit. What the fuck do I say about a mirror suit? I gotta say this thing about Bishop Brigante, but that's kind of obvious. What do I say that's a little deeper? And then inserting it in the middle of the round and being able to come back to the round. That I feel like that was something that I had mastered. That was like, I will always show up with a couple things in my pocket and always be able to seamlessly merge them with what is going on now. And like even in the E-Nest battle is like I had like 9 like I foolishly never timed myself, and when we got to Miami I was like, oh, I should probably time this stuff, and it was like 9 minutes worth of material that could have been, each round could have been 9 minutes, and I was like, Ness, like, can we do 9 minutes? And he's like, come on, man, like I got 3 minutes, I got 2.5 minute rounds.
It took work to get
exactly. So even in the Ness battle, I was pulling from 27 minutes of material and putting it in a 3-minute section.
Wow.
So even that wasn't like, some of the rounds were sort of structured, but a good amount of it was like, fuck, what else do I have that I can
It's like mentally spinning through all your bars, right?
Going through it and then accessing shit.
What's so amazing, it doesn't seem like you're not even skipping a beat, which is the most amazing part. And like, I'm always blown away by that, like that's your true talent,
Thanks, man. Thank you.
So what's next? You signed to do a couple more with King of the Dot?
Yeah. I actually want to do like a lot now.
Yeah, you're in. It's great.
I'm in.
I can sense
I can see the smile on your face right now. It's great.
No, I like, I think for so long I fought the idea of like, you're a battle rapper, because there is a lot of stigma with that, and I really didn't.
And then you wanted to be a musician. So, you are a musician.
Yeah, exactly.
Your new mixtape Killer is awesome.
Thank you.
Like I said that earlier, and I want to say it again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, that was always what I wanted. Yeah. Was that, and so the battle rap took over and overshadowed that, but I'm just at a point in my life where, like, I'm 33. I'm not going to be a
new father.
Yeah, I'm a new father. Yeah. Like I have different priorities, and I have acceptance of, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, anything is possible, and I can be this thing, and this is who I'm going to be.
Like, I'm never going to be an astronaut.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to be now,
like,
and that's
like,
real.
Yeah, and the relationship I had with music became unhealthy because of, I would go on music blogs and be like, this guy's getting love, man. Like, fuck these dudes. Like, fuck this blog. Fuck that dude. Instead of being like, whoa, Chance the Rapper is awesome. I would be like, who the fuck is Chance the Rapper? And that was like, ugh, this feels shitty.
It's unhealthy.
It's not healthy. It's not fun. Like, I don't want to have that relationship with music. And so
dark energy.
Yeah, it's whack, man. And like, and like, it doesn't make for. It is also a shitty recipe for an artist to be successful, because
how can you be creative in that environment?
How can you be creative? Yeah. And how can you get on camera and be yourself and have people drawn in by your, I think, Kanye West, Chance the Rapper, Kendrick Lamar, these are guys who who you're drawn in by their freedom. And even people that'll be like, Kanye's jeans are too tight. It's like they still are partly drawn to him because he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's a great bar right there. Yeah,
bars. Yeah. So like I just now that I'm like, you know what, man, like all I ever wanted with my, like, even with the mixtape, like there's layers to the mixtape of, you know, certain songs, like the next song starts with the words that the last song ended with. Yeah. There's like layers, like all of my music, you know, on my album Monster, like there's a melody that gets used in one song that gets reused in another song, and it's referential to that song because of the content is overlapping. And like, so I always wanted people to care about the detail, and just, that's what I want. And in battle rap, people fucking care about what I'm saying, and will break it down. Matters, yeah. So like, instead of me being like, well, no, care about my music, because, you know, with that stuff, I'm like producing and playing guitar and like making the beats and like, you know,
do almost everything. I mean,
I'm involved. Like I'm involved. So like, I want people to be like, whoa, listen to how Solomon, listen to that snare he chose. The same way that they're like, listen to how he said puff puff pass. But people aren't, and I can't fight that. And I'll come back to making music. I'll come back to making music when I'm in a position, like financially and practically in life, where I can afford to commit the time it takes to make projects at the level I want to make projects and not care how they're received.
Yeah, being okay with the interpretation of your fans, you know?
Yeah, if 10 people get this, I'm cool with that. I just want to make it, and I have the time and the money to do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It takes maturity and time to get to a point.
Totally.
I think that, you know, me and Mike as writers, it parallels the same way. I mean, if one person reads my story, I mean, that's one person who read it. That's great for me. I mean, like I've already won. You know, like, you know, I touched somebody. You know, so.
And I read this book recently called "Why Smart People Hurt." That
that's a great title.
Yeah, it sounds like if there's battle rap fans are listening, it's pussiest title. Why Smart People Hurt. And the cover is like a pair of like nerd glasses that are like broken with the like tape on them. Yeah. So it's like super pussy and not hip hop. But I'm very like, you know, she's gonna make fun of me because she reads a lot and I don't, and she, you know, she's like, yeah, you read art magazines. But I have been reading a lot more recently, and I'm always like seeking out, you know, self-reflection and stuff. And this book is talking a lot about setting the bar too high. You know, smart people or people who identify as being smart or overachievers, you set the bar so high that a home run becomes only satisfactory.
It's never good enough.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I got a home run.
Right.
All is okay in the world, but I'm not even excited.
Right.
And this guy is saying, like, you need to be able to be happy with, be open to the home run happening and be ready to receive that and be like, fuck, dude, I just hit a home run.
It's beautiful.
But you also need to be able to be like, man, I just stepped up to the plate. And that might not be, you know, that a home run might be 100, right? And stepping up to the plate might be 6.
Right.
But 6 adds up to 100 eventually, and like, do you really want to trade 0? Like, because you didn't get 100, you want 6? You want 0?
You stayed in bed.
Take 6. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
So from part of what I took from that is like, just I need to find the pleasure and the joy in just creating it, and be open to it being received in a way that's like, holy shit, people love my shit. But to work on being like, yo, I made this, and that's fucking awesome. Or I tried to make something. That's awesome. I made something. That's awesome. It's good.
Right.
You know, that's all, you know. And now we're getting close. You know,
enhance the art too. That type of freedom, that type of attitude. Yeah.
Totally. It's like,
it just feels. Yeah, I think even karmically that just feels great. You know, like on a much higher level. You know,
totally. You can't overthink how everything's getting received. It'll mess you up.
Exactly.
Create the best thing you can, and
it tends to taint the process. And again, with those artists, you know, Kanye West, I mean, I think he's definitely thinking a lot about how it's being received, but I think the driving force is like, what do I want to fucking hear?
Yeah.
What should radio sound like to me? You know, I should be able to rap about Jesus on the radio. Yeah. You know, I should be able to make this weird fucking art rock, you know, porn album that should be on the radio. Yeah. You know, not like, well, are they going to put this on the radio?
Are they going to like it?
Yeah, it's like, no, like, man, fuck you. You're going to like this.
Brave and fun at the same time.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I'm trying to get, and I'm a lot closer there.
Good.
And I think it's making for better.
It's all
better
about
shit.
believing in yourself, and not letting anybody else control your artistic endeavors.
Yeah, and it also gives me the room to prioritize my wife and my child and my family and myself. Because during that time that I was pursuing music, it was like I was fucking broke. I didn't have any time because I was the studio was like, my God, it was like, if I don't finish the song, like, what do you mean we had dinner plans? Like, the song isn't done. You crazy? Like, and go on vacation. Like, what? That's like 3 days I could be making music and I can't afford it. You know what I mean? Totally. So like, I'm not participating in my own life in a lot of ways, like I'm not hanging out with my friends. I'm not being a good partner to my woman. I'm not, I wouldn't be able to be a good father to my son. Like, so I think it just was, just being an old man growing into like that maturity.
Accepting that you're a dope battle rapper and that's something you should get in,
right.
Exactly.
Because you are. You're a dope battle rapper.
Right. Like how, that was the other thing was like, what, man? Like motherfuckers, tens of thousands of people care about this shit and they're willing to pay me money to do this. Like, what the fuck am I doing sitting on the bench because I'm not Jay-Z, because I'm not Slash. It goes back, it goes back to the 8-year-old Aaron being like, Dad, I quit guitar because I'm not Slash, and it's like, why am I sitting on the bench when like there are people who really care about me, care about what I have to say, care about what I'm creating, what I'm contributing to the culture, and want to fucking pay me a lot of money to do it? Like, what?
Pay you to do what you love.
Yeah,
like isn't that everybody's dream?
Totally, and that is like a triple and not a home run. You know what I mean? But it's like I was so caught up in the home run, and triples are fucking great. Base hits are great. You might
drive in a run every now and then when you get those.
I'll take a walk. Let's bulk.
Hey, I'm on base, baby.
Exactly. So like we're really this baseball metaphor.
Oh man, it's baseball season.
Baseball's good for Mets.
Mets are in the air. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
cool. And the good news for all your fans and battle rap in general that you're gonna be out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Real quick, I want to thank my friend Steve Principe who got me into this, the walking, talking Stephen Hawking, who got me into this way back in the day.
That's dope.
We actually we created a site a while ago. It's called Rhyme Camp, where we'd kind of I'd come up with topics and he'd come up with rhymes. You showed up on the site one day and we're like, yo, that's dope. I don't know how you found it.
Really?
But Steve called me and he's like, yo, and this is 5 or 6 years ago.
Crazy.
But you made my boy's day that
awesome.
day. So
Steve, right?
Steve.
What's up, Steve?
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
You just made his day again.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But we can't thank you guys. Oh wait, no. Steve wanted me to ask. He wants to see you rematch Thesaurus.
That's been in the air.
That should be in the air. I want to see that too.
So I am open to that, but it's not on my priority list.
Yeah.
Only because there's other people that I'm really excited to go against right now, and I think that would be dope. And I think that Thesaurus is one of the greatest of all time, hands down. And as far as purely spontaneous, complex, multisyllabic metaphor shit, he's the best. The top 2 to 3, if not the best. And that would be a dope battle. There are things that I'm
you got your heart set on.
Yeah, I have a list. I have my list, and there are.
I would ask what, but
there are people.
Battle rap bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there are. I want to. I'm still, even though I'm let me just have fun, I still also am trying to create a narrative of some sort and create a package of, something that people can be like, that year was dope. Those 5 years were great, So, and I could see Thesaurus being a part of that for sure.
Cool.
And I have nothing but admiration and love and respect for him. And he's an inspiration. And I would definitely be open to it. It's probably 5 to 7 battles down the line, but I definitely, but just to say,
that you're thinking that far. That's cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Again, thank you. It means
Absolutely.
a lot to both of us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Truly. Thank you.
Sharon, thank you. Taco, thank you. Taco the dog, thank you.
Miami, be good to Iron. He's a Brooklyn boy. It might take some getting used to. Again, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
great.
Our pleasure.
Across the Margin podcast.